Aloha, and welcome to Wind in Your Hair. Authentic talk, real breakthroughs in love and life, guaranteed no BS, and the life you want most, starting right now. Aloha, and welcome to Wind in Your Hair. I'm Anna, your host, and today it's going to be a solo episode all about some very juicy things such as sex and misalignment and nervous system regulation and emotional intimacy and intensity and so many good things. So let's dive in. The title: Why Your Relationships Feel Intense But Not Safe. I think most people enter relationships not trained, not educated about attachment styles, nervous system regulation, and how it runs your decision-making process. There's so much depth to the human psyche and the soul. There's so much that comes with a person that you commit to: their attachment styles, their trauma, their history, their subconscious, their mindset, their limiting beliefs, their Enneagram, the personality, the unwritten rule book that everybody subconsciously writes their entire life and then kind of expects everybody else to play by. And we don't, because we all have our own rule book. So this is about the nervous system and intimacy that no one really talks about. So let's dive in. You're not addicted to the person. You're addicted to the way it makes your body feel. You're addicted to the state your body is in. And most people confuse sexual intensity with emotional intimacy, two very different things. So I'm going to open with a quick little story. I dated this guy after my divorce, before my ex-boyfriend, and it was very intense and we had high chemistry and it felt connected and great sexual intensity until we didn't. And this is actually what caused me, though, to stumble across the attachment styles, to do a deep dive, and then to become certified. It felt electric and magnetic, but underneath it all, it was not calm. It was chaotic. It was confusing. It was uncertain. It was things that I had never dealt with before and seen a man act in ways I've never seen men act. I was just like, what the hell is going on? And then I researched it one day and came across the attachment styles and realized he was a dismissive avoidant, and everything made sense. All the dots were connected. The lights turned on, and I said, okay, now that I know what I signed up for, I'm erasing my name from the clipboard now. I'm going to move on. I don't need another project in my life, especially a 34-year-old grown-ass man who is technically a little boy in an adult body. And so intensity is not intimacy. We cannot get those confused anymore. And sexual chemistry is not emotional safety. We're going to break down nervous system regulation, emotional maturity, and the real difference between intimacy and sex. I hope that you're going to hear some things you've never heard before that will add a lot of value to your relationships. And in case you can hear a puppy whining in the background, that's a little guy I picked up today from the Dallas Animal Shelter, and not the best timing, to say the least. I need to get through this episode ASAP. So let's make this fast. There's 7 segments. Segment 1, intense doesn't mean aligned. I go back to my story about the guy I dated for 6 weeks. It was intense, and we were far from aligned. Think of intensity as the tip of the iceberg. So you have that chemistry, that sexual attraction, intensity, the excitement, the butterflies. But what is below the tip of the iceberg? That's all the alignment. So once you get past that intensity, the tip of the iceberg, you've got to look at the rest of the berg. And if you're not aligned, then you've got to go on to the next iceberg, right? So when you feel the butterflies that won't settle, the obsession, the constant overthinking, the waiting on the text messages, the walking on eggshells, all that stuff, that's called activation. Your nervous system is activated. And your nervous system learned love through unpredictability when you're activated by these things. Some people are not activated by these things. Me, not anymore. My mindset is completely different than it was 2.5 years ago. So to some people, maybe you, calm feels boring because you're not used to that. And consistency feels suspicious. And peace feels unfamiliar because that wasn't how you were raised. That's not love to you. Love is chaotic and uncertain and butterflies and intensity and high chemistry. But that is what we need to change. We need to work on. This is why people sabotage secure partners and chase chaos. When I say secure partners, I'm referring to the attachment styles. Everybody has an attachment style. There's basically 3 main ones. And that's how you show up in a relationship, either secure, anxious, or avoidant. So let's jump to segment 2. Intimacy versus sexual intimacy. Just because I say intimacy, it doesn't mean I'm always talking about sex. Intimacy is closeness. This is Intimacy 101. It's just closeness. It doesn't mean having sex. It includes emotional intimacy, sharing your fears, your truths, intellectual intimacy, which is having a deep conversation, which I love, spiritual intimacy, which are shared values, which I also love, and physical affection, that is not sexual. Intimacy is being seen without any of your armor. How many of you allow yourself to be seen without any armor? That's you being intimate, being close. Now, sexual intimacy is physical connection with emotional presence. You can just have sexual connection. It doesn't mean you have sexual intimacy. Let me say that again. Sexual intimacy is physical connection with an emotional presence. But here's the distinction. You can have sex without intimacy. You cannot have real intimacy without vulnerability. So for those of you who have a hard time being vulnerable, it's time to step it up. It's time to raise the bar, because if you want to have good relationships for the rest of your life, you've got to learn how to be vulnerable. And real, correct intimacy, which is closeness with vulnerability. Many couples are sexually active, but emotionally disconnected. That was me in my marriage. Till the end, we were not sexually active at all for the last 3 years. And we were emotionally disconnected because I didn't know that my ex was a dismissive avoidant, which made things really hard for me because I kept trying to cultivate a connection between us. And I remember I kept asking myself for 10 years, why is there no connection? What is missing? What is happening? I kept beating my head against a brick wall. So in those situations, sex becomes a validation, performance, maybe a stress relief, maybe power like bargaining, attachment glue. I've heard of stories where women won't have sex unless their husband buys them a bag or something, which is crazy to me. Instead of bonding, sex becomes very conditional. So sex can create attachment without creating safety. And this is why it's really actually beneficial for you, especially women, to not have sex during the early stages of dating. Like if he really likes you and he cares about you, then he won't try and have sex with you, because sex just clouds things up and you won't be able to create safety if you're just screwing each other, right? Segment 3, what emotional intimacy actually requires. Remember, emotional intimacy is closeness and vulnerability, not sex. Emotional intimacy requires self-reflection. How many of you all can stop and reflect on yourself, your behavior, your thoughts, your beliefs, your values, the things that you just said, the way that you just felt, without involving anybody else? Do you have accountability for yourself? Do you hold yourself accountable to your behavior? Do you have regulated responses? Can you repair after conflict, or you just brush it under the rug and avoid it? Do you have emotional availability? That means, are you available emotionally? It doesn't mean you're a high emotion person. By the way, everybody is an emotional person. Everybody has emotions. Stress, frustration, boredom, lust, worry, sadness, all of that. Those are all emotions. There's none that are good, there's none that are bad. They just are. If someone cannot self-reflect, they cannot build intimacy. If you're lacking in the self-reflection department, men and women, then this is probably why you have no intimacy. If every conversation you have turns into defensiveness, blame, shutting down, escalation, intimacy will never deepen. And I'm sure you probably already realize that in your own relationships. And that was the case for my marriage. Chemistry can be manufactured, but emotional safety cannot. It comes from an authentic, real person who can self-reflect, get in touch with his emotions, communicate, use I statements, pull up his big boy pants, and talk. Have a real conversation. Be real. Don't be fake. Don't lie, because that's not going to create intimacy. Section 4. Regulation is the foundation of intimacy. Nervous system regulation is exactly how it sounds. Just to be able to regulate, control, balance out your nervous system. And our nervous system is activated every single day, even when we don't even realize it. And it's activated by things we may not realize are activating it. It's this system that is on autopilot all the time. And regulated people, they can pause. And you know this when you're around people who don't pause, who don't stay grounded, you realize you're walking on eggshells around them. And it could be very intense and feel very unsafe emotionally. And the gap between you just gets further and further apart. Regulated people can stay grounded during conflict. That means they don't let other people's moods or behaviors dictate theirs. They don't have to use their anger to control or manipulate other people or loud voices to control the situation. Regulated people don't weaponize silence. And sometimes silence is the best and the strongest form of communication. And I don't mean stonewalling or shutting down. I mean not always having the last word, not always having to defend yourself or argue or go back and forth. Regulated people, they don't need to win. And I used to always want to win when I was married. That was one of my big faults, is I thought I was smarter than him because I wasn't the alcoholic. I wasn't addicted. I knew how to have emotional depth. I knew how to talk about goals and plans and dreams. I knew how to have good ideas. And so all of this stacked up to say, I need to win because, and that was just my pride. That was my ego. Regulated people can tolerate discomfort. They can be around people who are losing it and not take it personal, not let it move them. They could just sit and be present and say, hey, I'm here for you. I love you. Whatever you need, I'm here. And just be a calm anchor in the storm. And they can tolerate the discomfort without blowing up or withdrawing. If her feelings destabilize you, sir, then you're not leading. You're letting her emotions lead the relationship, and that needs to stop. So what needs to happen? You've got to learn to stabilize yourself when she's having strong emotions. And that just means separating the emotion from the person. Just because she's feeling emotional, it doesn't make her this wild, crazy, emotional, chaotic person. She's just having emotion. Look at it deeper. She's got undealt trauma, probably hurts, pain from the past. It doesn't mean it really has anything to do with you every single time. A lot of it has to do with the past. Regulation is definitely power. When you can regulate yourself, you're able to have power. Everybody wants to be empowered. Regulation creates safety when you can just stay calm and not take offense and not take it personally and choose your words correctly. That is such a beautiful, amazing gift. And that will create intimacy in your relationships. And safety allows intimacy. So let's back up. If you want to have emotional and sexual intimacy, you can have sexual intimacy without emotional intimacy, but you're always going to get good sexual intimacy with emotional intimacy. We start off with being able to be vulnerable and emotionally available, to be in touch with our emotions, to be able to regulate our nervous system, especially when somebody else is destabilized. And once you practice this every day, it becomes your norm, because your norm right now might be to escalate, to blame, to defend, to spiral down to the basement, I call it. Instead of just taking a step back and saying, hey, I don't need to go from first to sixth gear right now. Let me take a step back. Let me just assess the situation and have a clear mind. If you have to put yourself in timeout, go do it. Without regulation, sex becomes the glue holding the chaos together. I've heard from so many people that their marriage or relationship sucks, but the sex is good. Well, that's the glue that's holding your chaos together. And the glue can only last for so long. Segment 5. Why great sex won't save a broken dynamic. It's only a matter of time, people, till this glue comes undone. Great sex can intensify bonding, 100%, mask incompatibility. That's why when you have sex, when early dating stages and you're not fully committed, it can fog the whole thing up. It can mask that you guys may not even be compatible. And it can delay hard conversations. And it can keep people attached to dysfunction. But great sex cannot teach accountability, heal unprocessed trauma, create consistency in a relationship, or replace emotional maturity. So if the only place you feel close is in bed, you don't have intimacy. You have this thing called chemistry. You don't have intimacy. And intimacy is the key to having a lasting, fulfilling, meaningful, satisfying relationship. So great sex in a broken dynamic just makes the breakup harder. I've been saying this a lot lately. People need to break up a lot faster before they get married. Just early dating stages, you see some red flags, sayonara, like move on quickly. So you don't do this, which is you get sucked into having a bunch of sex and then everything gets foggy and blurred and it gets chaotic and there's no intimacy. So you're asking for a nightmare is what you're doing. If the foundation is unstable, then sex magnifies instability. And if the foundation is secure, then sex deepens your connection. So if you're not securely attached, if you're an avoidant and you're probably with an anxious person, then sex is not going to deepen your connection. It's just going to magnify the instability. That's the difference. So segment 6, 2 more. Why you keep choosing intensity. I did for a long time. So you're not choosing a person, really. You're not. You're choosing a familiar nervous system state. That's why it's so important to educate yourself on your nervous system and your attachment styles and your mindset, your subconscious mind. All this stuff is why you're making the decisions you're making, why you keep ending up in empty relationships that are chaotic and confusing. Avoidant feels mysterious. If you're an anxious and you end up attracting an avoidant, which is typically the case, that avoidant feels mysterious to you because they're a little bit more reserved. They're not as in touch with their emotions. And anxious people can feel passionate to an avoidant. So opposites attract, but it's the similarities that keep people together. And that push-pull feels intoxicating. Now your body is chasing recognition, what's familiar, what's safe, in quotes, not alignment. Go back to the tip of the iceberg. There's the chemistry, there's the push-pull, the intoxication, the mystery, the passion. Well, what's underneath the tip of the iceberg? The whole 90% that's under the water you don't see. If there's just a tiny bit of alignment and most of it's just chaos, you're signing up for a decade of just wasting your time when you could just be brave, be strong, walk away and wait for someone that you're aligned with and work on your nervous system. Just because he seems boring to you, it doesn't mean he's the wrong one. Just because she seems too peaceful and calm, it doesn't mean she's the wrong one. Healing means teaching your body that calm is safe and that consistency is attractive. And the older you get, the more attractive these become to us. And peace is not boring. Last segment, Let's do this. We're in the home stretch, people. Practical application. Number 1, slow the pace. If it feels urgent, then pause. Take a deep breath, rein yourself in, buddy. And if it's starting to feel a little bit urgent, it's not a good sign. After intimacy, check your body. Do you feel calm and connected or anxious and unsure? Okay, number 3, choose consistency over chemistry. Consistency over chemistry, which I know is going to be hard for a lot of people because we love the chemistry, we love the polarity. But long-term, consistency is going to win. Because you can always have consistency and add the polarity and the chemistry. But if you have the chemistry, it doesn't mean you can always add consistency. Give steady people time before labeling them boring. So maybe if you're used to chaotic, maybe just for the fun of it, let me give you this piece of homework. If you're single or you're with someone who seems boring, just give them a little time and have a little self-reflection. Is it you that's regulating your nervous system to chaos? Or are they genuinely boring people and you're a securely attached person who values peace? It's your job to figure that out. If you're in a relationship right now, maybe there's a good chance you don't need chemistry. Maybe you actually need safety. Maybe you need emotional intimacy and emotional availability from that person. Maybe you need to become that yourself. And again, going back to alignment, if whatever you want in a partner, you've got to become that yourself. Instead of looking for the right partner, become the right partner. You've got to be aligned with your own values and your standards and your faith and all these things. And if you don't even know what those are, then you will never be aligned with yourself. And then you're going to attract chaos. You're going to attract somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they want either. I'll close with this. Safety is built through regulation and emotional maturity, not sexual intensity. Safety is built through regulation and emotional maturity. If you're tired of intense relationships that don't last, then book a call with me. This is the work that I do. And let's break the pattern at the root. So I'm going to close with that and encourage you to go get some wind in your hair. If you don't know what that means to push yourself outside your comfort zone, do something unfamiliar and kind of scary. Maybe go play pickleball with complete strangers, go to dinner by yourself, go to listen to live music by yourself. You need to be comfortable being alone. Most people are not comfortable doing that. But when you can be alone with yourself and you like your own company enough to be alone, you become empowered. You become confident, and people can smell that a mile away. When you walk into a room, you can feel the energy. I love this quote I just saw that said, I don't need to know you. I can feel your energy. And that's enough for me. So if you want to be confident, then be comfortable being alone. Learn what your attachment style is. I'll have the link in the show notes for you to take the 5-minute quiz. And be more self-reflective throughout the day in your interactions with other people, maybe your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend, your children. And ask yourself, do I know how to regulate myself emotionally? Do I get escalated? Do I raise my voice? Do I talk down to people? It's so important to understand and to be able to take responsibility for your behavior, especially if you're hurting other people. If you're causing other people to feel unsafe or alone or unloved or shitty about themselves, then it's time to take some accountability and to have some self-reflection. I will see you next week with an interview with Dr. Chris. He's on social media. You guys will love him, all about attachment styles and relationships and all that fun stuff. So I really hope that you got some value out of this. And until next week, go get some wind in your hair.